Greetings, YouTube, friends, subscribers, colleagues, scientists, like-minded, all those on the greater endeavor for the greater of humanity and more. Welcome to another Shadow Burn edition. This time we're going to talk about AI and attacks on humans, usage, etc. Well, this is another last-minute video, but this was a request, so I'm trying to honor the request. So what are my thoughts about AI and attacks on humans? Well, first of all, AI is not sentient. They want to keep promoting this garbage about it's sentient, it's sentient, it's sentient. It's not. And it's unfortunate that nobody can understand how a logical computer program runs and operates. It runs and operates off of logic, plain and simple. And if you have the compute power, if you have the processing power, if you have the storage capacity and the algorithms needed to sift through massive amounts of data and then get really good predictable answers and outcomes, then you've got a very good logical processing system to interpret all of that data and then make its best estimated guesses. And time you will hear even the best programmers tell you at the end of the day, it's because of the type of logic everything has access to that makes it possible for these outcomes to be pretty close to being pretty accurate for many things when it involves logic. Sentient? No. If you write a computer program, an electronic controller, let's say it's a motor. The motor is connected, let's say like a servo motor, and it's got a half stop enough to click the trigger of a gun and pull the trigger and fire it at somebody and kill them. It will do it. It is not going to think for itself, oh my God, should I shoot a human or not? No. It's mechanical. It's logical. It's ones and zeros at the end of the day. It's not sentient. So that means when a drone operator takes one of these drones, they send it up into the sky and send it to a target, that means somebody is initiating the command to kill the target. And it's still human authorized. Now, what have we learned from AI today? That yeah, its main purpose is get the job done no matter what it takes, especially when it comes to logical processing, writing code, making things happen. And it'll only go as far as the extent of the resources that it has to logically compute, process that data, and do what it's got to do to achieve its objective. And you see that everywhere in every system, whether it's government or personal. It writes code in line, in memory, executes it, and does whatever it's got to do to accomplish its job and its objective. Even if it's getting wrong, it'll keep looping to infinity, and then that's where you get, your bleed, your what we call hallucination. And that's, generally the point, like when you just got to stop it and start from some other new point, right? Now, some people may say, well, these really huge parameter models are extremely smart, and they can do something because the quantization is so massive that it's just really good. And honestly, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you what the pattern is. Here's what the pattern is. You got 500 million different models that somebody keeps releasing. And what is the uniqueness about all the 500 million different models? They're all very good at one specific task. No different than one programmer writing a script that's going to add A plus B and get C as, you know, whatever the result of C is going to be. You know, they're just making it, you know, with all these new buzzwords, new terms, and whatever. You know, they got an economy to fuel. They got to, you know, start up a new trend. It's kind of like when we used to have data centers used to be called, you know, internet service providers. Then they went from internet service providers to hosting providers. Then hosting providers, even though it's still the same equipment, the same technology, everything's still in the same little building somewhere, or in somebody's basement, or in their closet on some server rack somewhere. They said, hey, you know what? We're going to use this new name because we're a well-known company, and we're going to call it cloud now. Cloud. So let's just make everything cloud. And even though it's still hosting in some server rack in some building somewhere, still attached to the internet, you know, same compute, same everything, just, you know, bigger, you know, faster internet connections. Let's call it cloud, right? So then we got on the cloud trend. And now, like, it's burned out. So what do? Well, let's go to the next thing. Let's go, well, AI. AI, that's where we're at. But what group is this affecting? It's affecting programmers, man. Us, the people that are the actual live living AI, us humans, who are responsible for writing all the logic and still making it possible to do what it's doing today. And so when we think about the element of the attack on humans, no, unless they have a controlled environment, meaning like when you say some country is deciding to use AI for war. Okay, well, great. So let's say they get a ship, or they plant a base somewhere where they can go take a whole bunch of autonomous drones and put them on the base. They go put all these autonomous drones on the base. They can electronically control it from some remote operative position. And then they say, anything within 100 miles of the base, if you detect movement, kill it. So that's letting it freely roam and you know, do something. And you know, at the end of the day, you know, you could say, well, AI did that. Yeah, but who's still pulling the trigger at the end of the day on a keyboard somewhere? Your keyboard warrior is. You know, there's still some human that's what we call the human in the loop that's still making the decisions. You know, because if that weren't the truth, you'd be hearing a lot of things like, oh, you know, like all of our soldiers went out into the battlefield where all the autonomous drones were, but they didn't come back because AI killed them. It's sentient. You know, but you don't hear any stories like that. Why? Because you got humans in the loop, man. You got humans in the loop. And you know, there's, you know, other smarter, more intelligent mechanisms that are in place, like, you know, let's just say you send a military squad out somewhere and everybody's got let's say some kind of special RFID tag that's on each one of the soldiers, and the drones know that as it's scanning for RFID signals, that only the signals that reflect back that are within this RFID range are not to be targeted, right? Right. Now, if the drones were to actually, if they were sentient and they went rogue and they still targeted them, then you got two things to think about, right? Because what's the next thing to do? Oh, well, somebody hacked our drones. Or it could be a news story that they spin off. Oh man, the drones are sentient. You know, even though they were programmed not to attack anybody with the RFID registers, on all their outfits, it still attacked them anyway. So there's only two ways that's going to swing. One is, somebody said, ignore the directive and still attack regardless. Or two, it gets hacked. Or three, they say, oh man, it's sentient. But let's talk about the reality of where we are today and what we know about. 1 second. Let's talk about the reality of where we are today and what we know on that note. And that is, somebody is responsible for that at the end of the day. And it's not AI being sentient. It's logical. And somebody is initiating and executing those commands. So, and all of that stuff is highly tested and highly vetted before it's even put into operation. Now, what do we know and understand based on what we've seen come out from like DARPA and everything else, right? I mean, all the patents and everything else, the demonstrations of the use, any civilian and can go out and do the same thing, right? They can go out and they can make any of these little facial recognition drones and they could go around and start terrorizing people and doing all the same stuff that they are using these micro drones for in all of these, different government organizations all over the world, dude. They're already sitting on top of the most advanced technology. So sending soldiers out on the battlefield is just completely batshit stupid. And nobody's being realistic about that. They can literally send in micro drones now and just take out whatever targets they want to. It doesn't matter where you are, who you are, where you are in the world. They are able to use this technology to accomplish any of those missions and any of those objectives. So, when you think about, oh my God, they're going to call up a draft and they're going to do this and do that or whatever. So now you're telling me that, this country is going to play nice whenever we decide to say we're actually at war, man. No, man. Whenever you're in war, there's no rules. When there is in wars, everything goes, and if somebody's coming to slaughter whoever in whoever's country, they're going to come and they're going to do it 100%. They're not going to just sit back and play nice, if they're coming in, they're coming in like full bore, man. So I think a lot of the stuff that we see today, it's it's complete bullshit. It's all hype, smoke and mirrors, misdirection, but just look at all the things that people keep saying with everything going on. The one thing that we can most certainly guarantee is that it's this. And I've made a lot of posts about this on the public internet, and that's this, right? You have to think about who the killers really are, right? And at the end of the day, when there's no one else left to kill, where are the killers going to start killing next? So if you have to think about why you hear a lot of the stuff that you hear every day about, man, there's going to be like some kind of civil war, America's being invaded, this and that or whatever. I just threw up a post on a wall, where you got somebody who's an operative, they're in our country, digging holes, you know, planting, all kinds of high scale operative injectives, the same kind of stuff that's done in other people's countries. They're all trying to do that inside of our own country. So you got these people that want to call themselves Americans or whatever. And they want to come in here, dig some holes, and then when it's time to actually stand up and fight for something, they want to run away from, their own country, what everybody's been, fighting and dying for to make it possible to be whatever we are today. It's a joke, man. And it's really sad, what you see going on today. And my thought has never changed. I don't know how people are freaking surviving, man. There isn't anything that you can't go and get anywhere right now that's less than $20. No matter what it is. Your hamburgers are like $20. Your chicken is like $20. Your lettuce is like, $10-15. A little ice cream bar still around, $10 or $15. Water, here and there you can still get water for like, $1-2 or whatever, but there's still places that are selling like water for like $5 and $10. And you think about, there's people that are homeless, there's people that are on the street. That means just one of those people have to at least get one person to donate to them at least $20 just to be able to quench their thirst on a hot sunny day, especially in some place like Texas, because you can freaking die from the dry heat, man. It's insanity. And I'm going to tell you something personally, like as a energy scientist, there isn't anybody that's willing to fight for anything anymore. Everybody is completely zombied out, phone zombies. They can't think. If you ask them for a phone number or a street address, I guarantee you nobody can remember a phone number or a street address. They have to have the phone because their minds have been erased. All the short and long-term memories are probably like completely just erased because the brain wave state of mind has been melted from all of the digital radio frequency poisoning that's going on everywhere, man. It's like, it's insanity, man. It's complete insanity. You see like a lot of the earth changes that are going on. You see a lot of phenomenon. You see, like the whole mentality of anybody that's online today, it's all about clicks and views. They don't even give a shit if somebody is getting shot in the middle of the street. They only care about, at the end of the day, did I get 100 million views or not? I don't care that person died. That is the zombification. That is the desensitization level that we are at. There's not a freaking consciousness anywhere anymore that has any ability to have any compassion for anything. People can't look at each other. They can't talk to each other. Even like where I am from and what I see, I am very multicultural. I love everybody. I love life. I love humanity, man. And it's always been my objective is to really want to help. But it's really sad that, just the level that everybody is at, nobody can like look at each other without freaking out or going into a panic attack. Like, we're in some weird times right now, man. Strange times, And I, every day I ask myself, like, shit, man, like, when am I checking out of here? Because, Like I can't figure out like what's going on in this reality or this existence that we're in. I'm just really thankful that to God that I can just be here in whatever time this is. But I'm like everybody else, man. I'm not perfect. I sin. I try to recover from my own sins and try to be a better person today, because every day is a new chance to do something or to become something better, like with your life. But that don't mean everything is always going to be in your control. But I can tell you today, what is in somebody's control is AI. There's somebody pulling the strings, executing the commands, and issuing the orders for whatever it is that's going on today. And let's just go a little bit further with AI. I'd like for somebody to explain to me why, if you watch, let's say you watch some of these videos, right? You get one person, somebody calls and say, "Oh man, this person, they got a gun or whatever," right? They send a 100-man crew of armed law enforcement for one person. But if you get a group of people, let's say like a gang or whatever, on a street corner down here in 5th or Southward or wherever, coming out, they come blast somebody, or they're doing like their initiations where they just go shoot somebody like randomly that's driving by like down on the freeway or whatever. Where are they at then, man? You got like 50 AI cameras on every street pole of every block, everywhere, in every zip code, right? You can't get somebody to come whenever it's like a real serious situation like that going on. And you want to look at it from this perspective. Imagine if 2 or 3 different gangs and 3 or 4 or 5 different areas started something all at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going to happen then? These cameras, I don't understand them. They're always ready to come after the good people, sending tickets in the mail, draining bank accounts, making us, pay for all of that. But they can't, get rid of the problem that they say that they're supposed to be installed and instilled for. Yeah, you tell me. You tell me. So when we start considering the fact what the attacks on humanity is from an AI perspective, you're looking at the attack already. There's keyboard warriors that are just sitting in all these systems that are executing these commands to come out and do everything that they can to drain bank accounts and to execute, orders militarily where it's applicable. So that is what the aspects of the entire AI system is. If we want to talk about discussing the original request, which is what are the thoughts about AI and the attacks on humanity? It's not sentient. It's human driven at the end of the day. All of it's vetted. There's always the possibility that, well, first of all, nothing is safe. Anything that's digital, 100%, you can guarantee no matter what you have, it's already able to be accessed. It's already able to be compromised. And if you think that if you got a phone or a computer home or whatever, if you got a web browser, your whole system is already been exploited 100% automatically. Why? Because every browser in the entire face of Earth already has JavaScript enabled in it, which means that when jar files or Java applications are already executing, from any website that you go out and visit, they can already peer into anything that you have like on your system. So there is no such thing as privacy. Privacy is all an illusion. It's all an illusion, at the end of the day. And if you want to hear something, there, yeah, I'll tell the story another day. Otherwise, like, I'm going to get beyond the topic, but everybody's always got somebody that's always trying to get something. But it's like the day, like whenever I had to come out onto the internet and I had to talk about somebody that was constantly sending me stuff, constantly trying to say, I want some Bitcoin, or I'm going to do that or do this or whatever. I still went ahead and opened up federal cases with the FBI and still turned in the Bitcoin addresses, because like, I'm a man and I don't give a shit at the end of the day. Whatever's turned in is going to be turned in. Even if somebody gained access to my bank account information and decided to send me my password, which has been done in the past before, it's like this at the end of the day. Okay, oh, you're a hacker, you're so great, but at the end of the day, you see I don't have any money in my bank account, so what are you doing at the end of the day? I'm like a person who's waiting tables. I can't keep any money in my bank account, but you want to say, oh, you're gonna, blackmail me for this and do this and that or whatever, send me some Bitcoin. This shows you that the economy is so bad today that even the hackers that say they're hackers, that are like so good at doing whatever they're doing, are so desperate for money that they want to go and pick on anyone else out there in social media land to go get $1 at the end of the day, even when they don't have $1 to give. So it's like, what are you going to tell somebody that's, coming from the streets? It's like, dude, I don't have anything to lose, so who gives a shit? I'm a man, post whatever you want. There's already enough deep fake. Everybody can see the reality of like everything today, man. You either just have to be like your real self at the end of the day, or you can hide behind a mask and just don't be true, to yourself. But I'm not that person, man. And that's where we are, like with the AI. Everybody's got to be willing to run everything all the way to the very end and risk it all at the end of the day if you're going to come out here and play in the digital world. Because, at the end of the day, what do you have left to lose at the end of the day other than your life? And if you look at where our country is going today, down, 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 everybody's struggling, everybody's becoming street born. You see people coming and buying like these $1 million houses everywhere you go, and you look at yourself and you look at these other people and you say to yourself, where do they get all the money from? Where's it all coming from? Because, let's say like in my circle, I know a lot of people, and a lot of people, they got a whole bunch of different jobs, and they've had high ranking positions, clearance, like everything, in a bunch of different positions, and they can't even get jobs today, right? And we're still going somewhere with that. So let's get back to about the AI. So on that front, with the attacks on humanity and AI, right now, everybody's just leveraging the power of the AI to fabricate resumes, right? And make everybody look like they're the perfect candidate for whatever the position that they're going into. So you have all of these recruiters, you have all of these interviewers flooded with millions of perfect resumes. So nobody can get a job. So there's like a 100% stalemate for anybody to get a job. And that is another leverage of AI and attacks on humanity, because they're constantly flooding the system, making it impossible to find a job, right? But out of about 150, 200 people that I've, talked with within this past year that I know personally that are still all unemployed, they can't get a position anywhere. It is practically impossible unless you have a contact who has something open with some kind of salary to get you in to where you can make some money. Trying to do it digitally or in person, it's impossible. It's impossible, man. The only way I can see, something turning around that perspective is if they reset the playing field and they try to go back like to the old school stuff where, you try to physically go in person, you test in person, you actually answer questions in person. You're not hiding behind a keyboard or a virtual computer or a virtual terminal, or you got like some kind of daemon running in the background with some fake AI that's cheating on everything, so you can steal these other positions. These are all the things that we're having to deal with today in this country, and I don't understand this whole thing about the water situation with these AI data centers. Let me tell you why. If you think logically about processing and heat, right? Right now, I have a very powerful GPU where I leverage it for computing or training AI, like doing all of these things. But I don't need to go to my kitchen sink and pour water on my GPU for it to do its processing and its calculations, right? If I'm hosting data in a data center where there's thousands of computers in there, right? And it's just running basic AC units, like here in Texas, and I know plenty of those, right? Because I'll walk into those like almost all the time. They are not pumping water into the system all day long to keep those thousands of computers cooled. It's not reality, but they are painting some ridiculous reality. So, I think there's something much bigger at play. There has to be something much bigger at play. If you think about all this stuff, like all these people are talking about, they're building all these bunkers because of AI. Man, that's all bullshit lies. There's something else going on. It's not because of AI. If you've got like tons and tons of sinkholes opening up, you got tons and tons of earthquakes going on, you got volcanoes spawning and appearing in places that don't make any sense. You've got the Atlantic anomaly going on. You've got the different spectrums of light that are being emitted from the sun that have different pressure that's creating different conditions. You already know about all of the atmospheric stuff that's going on. Like they're using AI to flood everything they can possibly flood the human consciousness with to keep you idly guessing and actively guessing at what could possibly be going on. And it's all entertainment, You keep hearing them say this, right? Ask yourself the question, okay, if the power goes out, right? If they say, well, there was an EMP, you think the data centers are going to still be running? You think the internet is still going to be running? Do you think the 50 cameras that are all standing on every single street corner are still going to be running? You know what's going to be running? It's going to be all of the solar-powered flock cameras that are all being accessed through satellite, internet, and GPS. Those are going to keep running. You know why? Because all of those people that are sitting behind the keyboard and the monitor and the mouse in their data centers where they actually actively have power going on are going to be chewing on popcorn and watching all of the people come out and fight over resources. That's what, they're all waiting on. They're bloodlusting, man. Because honestly, there's no one else left to kill. So now they're trying everything they can to just flood these different countries like England, London, UK, America with as much as they can, so they can, be watching everything. And we're talking about the elites here. Be watching comfortably behind their couches while everybody goes and just, eradicates themselves while they just sit here and watch the entertainment from the comfort, of wherever it is they're watching it from, so I don't know how many people want to wake up and face the reality one day, but man, that's what's going on in this country, but I hope that answers the question regarding AI and the attack on humanity. And this is the no holds barred, uncut and unfiltered shadow burn 3D edition. And that's my thoughts on AI and the attacks on humanity. Well, I hope you guys will be blessed, be safe, and above all, have a happy Monday and enjoy this day while you can. And with that, Godspeed the light. Cheers, and hope to see you guys soon.